I knew my parents would hate Mitchell before they even met him, but I still brought him home anyway. Not as my boyfriend. Not officially. Just a friend. Which, looking back, was probably the first mistake. It started a few months earlier, in the most boring way possible. I was working late at this small coffee place near campus, half dead from a double shift, wiping down tables and counting the minutes until I could go home. That's when he walked in. Mitchell didn't look like the kind of guy who belonged there. Not in a snob way, just out of place. Clean-cut button-down shirt, like he'd just come from something important. He had this quiet confidence about him, the kind that makes you notice without really knowing why. He ordered something simple. Black coffee. Of course he did. Long day? I asked, mostly out of habit. He gave me this small smile, like he wasn't used to being asked that. Yeah. You can tell? Only a little, I said, sliding the cup toward him. He lingered after that. Sat by the window, barely touched the coffee. Every now and then, I'd catch him looking at me, not in a creepy way, just curious. I tried not to think too much about it. But then he came back the next day. And the day after that. By the end of the week, we were actually talking. Not just small talk either, real conversations. About random stuff. Music, family, stupid childhood stories. It felt easy in a way I wasn't used to. Like I didn't have to filter myself. His name was Mitchell. And yeah, I noticed him. Obviously. But I didn't think anything would come from it. Guys like him didn't usually go for guys like me. Plus, there was always that unspoken question, is he even into guys? I'd been wrong before. A lot. But then one night, right as I was closing up, he stayed behind again. Just the two of us in the shop, lights dimmed, chairs flipped on tables. You ever get tired of pretending? He asked out of nowhere. I paused mid-wipe. Pretending what? He looked at me for a second, like he was deciding whether to say it. Like you don't notice things, he said quietly. Or feel things you probably shouldn't. My chest tightened a little. That wasn't exactly a casual question. I leaned back against the counter, trying to play it off. Sounds like you've got something specific in mind. He huffed out a small laugh, shaking his head. Yeah, maybe I do. And then he looked at me again, really looked this time. That's when it clicked. Not all at once. More like, everything suddenly made sense. The way he kept coming back. The way he watched me when he thought I wouldn't notice. The way the air felt different whenever we were alone. You mean me? I said before I could stop myself. There was a brief silence. Then he nodded. Yeah. I mean you. My heart was going way too fast at that point. I wasn't used to this kind of directness. Usually, things were messy, uncertain, hidden behind jokes or what-ifs. But not with him. Mitchell didn't look nervous. Just honest. I didn't want to assume anything, he added. I just didn't want to keep pretending I wasn't interested. I swallowed, trying to keep my voice steady. And what if I said you're reading it wrong? He shrugged slightly, but his eyes stayed on mine. Then I'd probably stop coming here. That hit harder than I expected. Because the thought of him not showing up anymore? That felt wrong. I let out a slow breath. You're not reading it wrong. Something shifted in his expression then. Not relief exactly, more like confirmation. Okay, he said softly. And that was it. No big dramatic moment. No over-the-top confession. Just the start of something. We didn't rush into anything after that. If anything, it got quieter between us, but in a good way. More intentional. He'd wait for me after shifts. Walk me home. We'd talk about everything and nothing, stretching out those late nights like either of us wanted them to end. The first time he touched me, it was barely anything. Just his hand brushing mine as we walked. But it felt like way more than that. And yeah, I fell for him faster than I should have. The problem wasn't Mitchell. It was my family. See, my parents had this very specific idea of what my life was supposed to look like. Who I was supposed to be. And even though I'd come out to them a year ago, they never really accepted it. They tolerated it. There's a difference. We didn't talk about it. Ever. It was like this invisible line we all agreed not to cross. So bringing Mitchell into that world? I knew it wouldn't go well. But at the same time, I was tired of hiding. Tired of splitting my life into two separate versions of myself. So when my mom called and said, "You should come home this weekend, we haven't seen you in a while," I hesitated. And then I made the worst, or maybe best, decision I could have made. "Can I bring someone with me?" I asked. There was a pause on the line. "Who?" I glanced over at Mitchell, who was sitting across from me, watching me with that same quiet curiosity. "My friend," I said. Another pause. "Sure," she replied, but something about her tone already told me this wasn't going to be simple. I hung up, exhaling slowly. Mitchell raised an eyebrow. That sounded intense. I gave a small, uneasy laugh. "You have no idea." He studied me for a second. "You don't have to do this, you know." "I do," I said more firmly than I felt. "I'm tired of hiding you." That made him go quiet. Not uncomfortable, just thoughtful. "You sure you're ready for that?" he asked. Probably not. But I nodded anyway. "Yeah," I said. And that was how I ended up driving back to my parents' house, with the guy I was already falling in love with sitting right next to me. What I didn't realize yet was just how much they were going to hate him, and how badly that would mess everything up. The drive to my parents' house felt longer than it actually was. It was only about an hour and a half, but with Mitchell sitting next to me, quiet, looking out the window like he was trying not to overthink things, it stretched. I kept glancing at him. "You okay?" I asked at one point. He nodded, but didn't look at me right away. "Yeah. Just trying to get a read on what I'm walking into." I let out a short breath. "That bad, huh?" "You're tense," he said simply, finally turning toward me. "You've been gripping the steering wheel like it personally offended you." I loosened my hands a little, realizing he wasn't wrong. "It's just my parents," I admitted. "They're not exactly open." Mitchell tilted his head slightly. "Open as in they know I'm gay," I said, choosing my words carefully. "But they act like it's temporary. Or ignorable." He went quiet again. That kind of quiet that says, "Okay, I get it now." "And you bringing me," he added. "That's not something they're expecting." "Nope." "And you told them I'm just a friend." "Yep." Another pause. "Andy." I already knew what he was about to say. "I know," I cut in. "It's not ideal. But I need to start somewhere, okay?" He watched me for a second, like he was weighing whether to push it. Then he sighed softly. "All right. I trust you." That should have made me feel better. Instead, it made the pressure worse. When we pulled into my parents' driveway, I immediately felt like I'd stepped back into a version of myself I didn't like. Everything looked the same. Same house, same trimmed lawn, same stupid wind chime my mom refused to replace even though it sounded like metal screaming in the wind. Mitchell glanced at it too. "That thing always sound like that." "Yeah," I muttered. "You get used to it." We got out of the car, and for a second neither of us moved. Then he reached out, just briefly, and brushed his fingers against mine. Not obvious. Not something anyone would notice. But enough. "Hey," he said quietly. "We'll be fine." I nodded, even though I wasn't convinced. "Yeah. We will." The door opened before we even knocked. My mom. She smiled at me instantly. "Andy!" She pulled me into a hug, tight, familiar, but there was always something a little stiff about it now. Like she didn't fully know how to act around me anymore. Then her eyes shifted past me. To Mitchell. And I saw it. It was subtle. Quick. But it was there. That immediate judgment. "Oh," she said, her smile tightening just a little. "You must be the friend." Mitchell stepped forward, polite as always. "Mitchell. Nice to meet you, ma'am." He held out his hand. She hesitated for half a second before shaking it. "Of course," she said. "Come in." That half second didn't go unnoticed. My dad was in the living room, watching TV, like always. He barely glanced up when we walked in. Hey, I said. He nodded. Andy. Then his eyes moved to Mitchell. And just stayed there. Not curious. Not welcoming. Assessing. Who's this? He asked, even though he definitely heard my mom. Mitchell, I said. He's my friend. My mom cut in quickly. I felt my jaw tighten slightly. Mitchell didn't react, but I could feel the shift beside me. Right, I said. My dad gave a slow nod, still looking at him. That was it. That was all he said. But somehow, it was worse than if he'd been outright rude. Dinner was tense. Not explosive. Not dramatic. Just filled with these little moments that kept stacking on top of each other. My mom asking Mitchell what he did, but in that overly polite tone that didn't feel genuine. My dad barely speaking, except to throw in the occasional question that felt more like an interrogation than conversation. So what are your plans long term? He asked at one point. Mitchell stayed calm. I'm working in consulting right now. Still figuring out where I want to settle. My dad nodded slowly. Right. Stability matters. There was something in the way he said it. Like it wasn't just general advice. Like it was directed. At him. At us. I could feel it building. That familiar pressure in my chest. The one I used to get all the time growing up whenever something wasn't right in their eyes. Mitchell handled it better than I expected. He didn't get defensive. Didn't shut down. Just answered, steady and respectful. But I could tell. He felt it too. It wasn't until after dinner that things really shifted. My mom pulled me aside while Mitchell was helping clear the table. Andy, she said quietly, her voice tight. Can I talk to you for a second? I already knew. Yeah. We stepped into the kitchen. She crossed her arms immediately. How long has this been going on? I blinked. What? Don't do that, she said sharply. I'm not stupid. My stomach dropped. Mom, you bring him here into our home, she continued, her voice low but intense. And expect me not to notice? Notice what? I pushed, even though I knew exactly what she meant. Her expression hardened. The way you look at him. That hit harder than I expected. For a second, I didn't even have a response. He's not just a friend, she said. I exhaled slowly. No. He's not. Silence. Heavy. Disappointed. I thought we were past this, she muttered. That made something snap in me a little. Past what? I said. Me being honest about who I am. Andy. No, seriously. I cut in. What exactly did you expect? That I'd just grow out of it. Her face tightened. I expected you to make better choices. That one landed. Hard. And for the first time since we got there. I felt anger rise up, not just anxiety. You don't even know him, I said. I don't need to, she replied. And yeah, that was the moment I realized. This wasn't going to be a small, awkward weekend. This was going to turn into something way bigger. And the worst part? Mitchell heard more of that conversation than I thought. Because when I turned around, he was standing there. Quiet. Watching me. And the look on his face? That's when I knew this wasn't just about my parents anymore. It was about whether I was actually ready to stand up for him. For a second, neither of us said anything. Mitchell just stood there in the doorway, one hand still lightly gripping the edge of the wall like he hadn't meant to overhear, but also hadn't been able to walk away. I felt my stomach twist. How much did you hear? I asked, already knowing the answer. Enough, he said quietly. My mom went stiff beside me. Oh, good. Then maybe this won't have to be repeated. Mom! No, she cut in, turning to face him now. Actually, maybe it should be said clearly. Mitchell straightened slightly, his expression calm, but I could see it, the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw tightened just a little. I think that would be better, he said. I shot him a look. Are you serious right now? But he didn't look at me. He was focused on her. My mom took a breath, like she was preparing herself. I don't think this is appropriate, she said, Whatever this is between you and Andy. There it was. Out in the open. Mitchell didn't flinch. Why not? Her eyes narrowed slightly, like she wasn't expecting him to push back. Because it's not the life we want for him. I let out a quiet, disbelieving laugh. You mean not the life you want for me? Andy. No, say it right. I said, my voice sharper now. You don't like that I'm with a guy. That's what this is. My dad's voice cut in from the living room. Lower your voice. I hadn't even realized how loud I'd gotten. Mitchell finally glanced at me then, just for a second. Not telling me to stop. Just steadying me. I care about your son. He said to my mom, his tone even. That's what this is. She shook her head immediately. You're young. You think you know what you want, but this kind of thing doesn't last. That's not for you to decide, he replied. There was no aggression in his voice. That somehow made it hit harder. My mom looked at me again, like she was hoping I'd step in. Agree with her. Fix it. But I didn't. I'm not ending this just because you're uncomfortable, I said. Silence dropped heavy between us. Then my dad stood up. And that's when everything shifted. My dad wasn't loud like my mom. He didn't argue or explain. He just decided things. Andy, he said, walking closer, his voice calm in a way that made it worse. We've always supported you. I almost laughed at that. Have you? I asked. His eyes hardened slightly. We've given you everything. A home. An education. Opportunities. That's not the same thing. I said. It is, he replied. And we expect respect in return. There it was. The real issue. Not concern. Control. Mitchell stayed quiet, but I could feel him beside me, grounded, steady. Not backing off. My dad's gaze shifted to him. And you? I tensed instantly. I don't know what you think this is. He continued, but you're not going to come into my house and disrupt my family. Mitchell met his gaze without hesitation. I'm not trying to disrupt anything. You already have. I stepped forward before this could go further. He hasn't done anything wrong. You've done enough. My dad shot back. Bringing this here, after everything we've discussed. We never discussed anything. I said. You just avoided it. His jaw tightened. That was out of respect for you. No, I said. It was because you didn't want to deal with it. The room felt like it was closing in. Every word making it tighter. More suffocating. Andy, my mom said, softer now, almost pleading. We're trying to help you. By telling me who I'm allowed to love? I asked. She didn't answer. Because there wasn't a good answer. Mitchell finally spoke again, quieter this time. Maybe I should go. I turned to him immediately. No. But I saw it in his eyes. He wasn't saying it because he wanted to leave. He was saying it because he thought it would make things easier for me. That hit something deep. No. I repeated firmer. You're not the problem here. My dad exhaled slowly, like he'd reached the end of his patience. If he stays, he said, then you can both leave. The words landed heavy. Final. No room for interpretation. My chest tightened. This was it. The moment I'd been avoiding without even realizing it. Mitchell didn't say anything. Didn't push. He just looked at me. And somehow, that made it harder. Because he wasn't asking me to choose. But I knew I had to. I looked around the house. Everything familiar. Everything safe. Everything that had shaped me. And suddenly felt too small. Too conditional. Then I looked at him. At Mitchell. The one thing in my life that actually felt honest. Uncomplicated in the way that mattered. And yeah, I already knew my answer. I'm not leaving him, I said. My mom's face fell. Andy, I'm not choosing between you and him, I added. You're the ones making it a choice. My dad didn't argue. Didn't try to convince me. He just nodded once. Cold. Then you should go. The walkout felt unreal. Like I was watching it happen instead of actually living it. My mom didn't follow us. My dad didn't say anything else. The door just closed behind us. And that was it. We got into the car in silence. I didn't even realize my hands were shaking until I tried to start the engine. Mitchell reached over, gently steadying my wrist. "Hey," he said softly. "Breathe." I let out a shaky exhale, leaning back in the seat. "Well," I muttered, staring ahead. "That went about as bad as it could have." He didn't laugh. Didn't make a joke. He just looked at me. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "Yes, I did. Andy. I meant what I said," I cut in, turning to him. "I'm not hiding you. Not from them. Not from anyone." Something shifted in his expression. Not relief. Something deeper. "You sure?" he asked quietly. I nodded. Even though my chest still hurt. Even though part of me felt like I'd just blown up my entire relationship with my family. "Yeah," I said. "I am." We drove off without looking back. And for the first time since we'd arrived, I didn't feel trapped anymore. But I also didn't realize yet that walking away from my parents wasn't going to be the hardest part. Not even close. The first night after everything happened didn't feel real. We ended up back at Mitchell's place. Not because we planned it, just because it was the only option that made sense. I remember standing in his kitchen, staring at nothing while he moved around quietly, grabbing 2 glasses of water like this was just a normal night. Like my entire life hadn't just shifted. "Here," he said, handing me one. "Thanks." I took it, but didn't drink. He leaned against the counter across from me, watching me in that same calm way he always did. Not pushing. Not rushing me to talk. Which somehow made it harder. "I didn't think it would go like that," I admitted finally. He nodded slightly. "I figured it might." I let out a weak laugh. "Yeah. I probably should have listened to you. It's not about being right," he said. "It's about what you needed to do." I looked up at him. "And what if what I needed just blew everything up? Then we deal with that," he said simply. That we again. It kept catching me off guard. We didn't talk much after that. Not because things were awkward. More like, everything that needed to be said had already been said. At some point, we ended up on his couch. Close, but not all over each other. Just there. His arm rested along the back, not quite touching me, but close enough that I could feel the warmth. And for the first time all day, I started to calm down. "You can stay here as long as you need," he said after a while. I nodded. "I might take you up on that." "Good." Another quiet moment passed. Then softer. "I meant what I said too, by the way." I glanced at him. "About what?" "About caring about you." Something in my chest tightened. Not in a bad way. Just real. "I know," I said. And I did. That was the problem. This wasn't casual anymore. The next morning was when it actually hit me. Not emotionally. Logistically. I was brushing my teeth in his bathroom when my phone started buzzing nonstop on the counter. I already knew who it was. Mom. Over and over. I let it ring the first few times. Then I picked it up. Not because I was ready, just because I knew ignoring it wouldn't make it easier. "Andy," she said immediately, like she'd been holding her breath. "Thank God." I stayed quiet. "You left your things," she continued. "Your room is still." "I'm not coming back right now," I said. Silence. Then sharper. "What do you mean?" "I mean I need space." "From us?" she asked, disbelief creeping in. "Yes." Another pause. Longer this time. "You're choosing him," she said. There it was again. That same framing. "That's not what this is," I replied. "Then what is it?" she pushed. "Because from where I'm standing, you walked out of your home for a man you barely know." That stung. "He's not just a man," I said, my voice tightening. "And I know him better than you think." "You've known him for what, months?" she shot back. "Andy, this isn't stable. This isn't." "Stop," I cut in. "Just stop." My reflection in the mirror looked different. Tired. but clearer. I'm not going to keep doing this, I said. Not pretending. Not shrinking parts of my life just to make you comfortable. Her voice softened again. We're not asking you to shrink. We're asking you to be realistic. No, I said. You're asking me to be someone I'm not. Another silence. Then, quieter. Your father is very upset. I almost laughed. Yeah, I said. I noticed. Andy, just come home. We can talk about this properly. I looked toward the doorway. Mitchell was there, leaning against the frame. Not listening on purpose, but not avoiding it either. Just present. I am talking about it, I said. You just don't like what I'm saying. Her voice hardened again. If you walk away from this family over something like this, I'm not walking away, I said. You're the ones pushing me out. And with that, I hung up. I stood there for a second, phone still in my hand. Then I exhaled slowly. That sounded intense, Mitchell said quietly. Yeah, I muttered. That's kind of the theme right now. He stepped a little closer. You okay? I nodded, then shook my head. Honestly? I don't know. That earned a small, understanding smile. Fair. The next few days blurred together. I stayed with him, went to work, avoided going home, and tried not to think too much about what came next. But the thing is, you can ignore something emotionally for a while. You can't ignore reality. By day 4, it started creeping in. My stuff was still at my parents' house. Most of it, anyway. Clothes, documents, everything. And more importantly, I hadn't really processed what it meant if they didn't come around. If this wasn't just a fight. If this was permanent. You're thinking too loud again, Mitchell said one night. We were sitting on his bed, laptops open, pretending to be productive. I glanced at him. Is that a thing now? It is with you, he said. I sighed, closing my laptop. I need to go back there. He didn't react immediately. Just waited. For my stuff, I added. He nodded slowly. Okay. I don't think it's going to be easy. I didn't expect it to be. I hesitated. Then, will you come with me? That was the first time I saw him pause. Not because he didn't want to. Because he was thinking about what that would mean. For you? He asked. Yeah. Another beat. Then he nodded. Of course. And just like that, we were going back. Right into the mess I'd just walked out of. Except this time, there was no pretending. No. Just a friend. No buffer. This time, it was going to be exactly what it was. And I had no idea how much worse that was about to make things. The drive back to my parents' house felt completely different this time. Last time, there was tension. This time, there was clarity. Not comfort. Not confidence, exactly. But something steadier. Like I already knew how this was going to go, and I wasn't pretending otherwise. Mitchell sat beside me again, quieter than usual. Not nervous. Just aware. You don't have to come inside, I said as we pulled onto my street. He turned to me slightly. Andy. I mean it, I added. I can grab my stuff and... I'm not waiting in the car, he said, not harsh, just firm. I exhaled through my nose. Yeah. I figured you'd say that. A small pause. Then softer. You sure you're ready for this? I looked at the house. Same as always. But it didn't feel like mine anymore. Yeah, I said. I am. This time, I didn't hesitate at the door. I knocked once. Waited. And when my mom opened it, the look on her face told me everything. She hadn't expected both of us. Her eyes went straight to Mitchell. Then back to me. Tight. Controlled. Andy, she said. You came back. Just to get my things, I replied. Her expression flickered. You're not staying? No. That word hung there. Heavy. Final. She stepped aside anyway. Fine. Come in. The atmosphere inside was worse than before. Not tense in a loud way. tense in that quiet, suffocating way where everything feels off. My dad was already in the living room again. Of course he was. Like he hadn't moved since we left. His eyes landed on us immediately. And yeah, that same look. But sharper now. You brought him back, he said. I didn't bother correcting the tone. I didn't bring him like he's something separate, I said. We came together. Mitchell stayed slightly behind me, not hiding, just letting me take the lead. My dad's jaw tightened. You're making a mistake. I don't agree, I said. You will, he replied flatly. I didn't engage. I just walked past him, heading toward my room. Mitchell followed. And as soon as we stepped inside, it hit me. Everything was still there. Exactly how I left it. Like nothing had changed. Except everything had. I grabbed a bag from my closet and started throwing things in. Clothes. Chargers. Whatever I could find quickly. Mitchell stayed near the door, watching quietly. You don't have to rush, he said. I do, I muttered. I don't want to drag this out. He nodded. Didn't argue. Halfway through packing, my mom appeared in the doorway. You're really doing this, she said. I didn't stop moving. Yeah. For him. I sighed, setting a shirt down harder than I meant to. Stop saying it like that. Like what? She asked. Like you're throwing everything away for someone you barely know. I turned to face her. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm choosing something real. Her expression cracked slightly. And we're not real? That's not what I said. It's what it feels like. She shot back. Mitchell shifted slightly behind me, like he was ready to step in. But didn't. He let me handle it. And I appreciated that more than I could explain. I want you in my life, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. But not like this. Like what? Like I have to hide parts of myself to keep you comfortable. She shook her head. We're asking for time, Andy. Adjustment. You're rushing into something. I'm not rushing, I said. I just stopped pretending. That shut her up for a second. But not for long. And what happens when this ends? She asked. When you realize this isn't. It might end, I said, cutting her off. Yeah. Like any relationship. I felt Mitchell's eyes on me at that. But I didn't look at him. Or it might not, I added. But either way, it's my choice. My mom's face tightened again. You sound just like him, she said. That one caught me off guard. What does that mean? It means, she said, glancing briefly toward Mitchell, you've already let him influence you. That did it. No, I said, sharper now. I sound like me. Finally. My dad appeared behind her then. Silent. But present. You're leaving, he said. Not a question. Yeah. He nodded once. Then take everything. I frowned. What? Everything, he repeated. Don't come back for anything else. There it was. The line. Drawn clearly this time. My chest tightened, but I didn't let it show. Fine, I said. The rest of the packing happened faster. Not because I wanted to. Because I had to. Every second in that house felt heavier than the last. Mitchell eventually stepped forward, quietly helping me zip the bag, grab a few last things. No big gestures. Just there. Solid. When we walked back into the living room, both my parents were waiting. Like this was some kind of final checkpoint. I adjusted the strap on my bag. That's it, I said. My mom looked like she wanted to say something. She didn't. My dad just nodded again. Cold. Take care of yourself, he said. It didn't sound like concern. It sounded like distance. I paused at the door. Just for a second. Not because I was reconsidering. Because I knew this moment mattered. Then I opened it. And stepped out. The air outside felt different. Lighter. Even with everything sitting heavy in my chest. We walked to the car in silence. And once we got in, I just sat there. Hands on the wheel. Not moving. Mitchell didn't rush me. didn't fill the silence. After a minute, he spoke. You okay? I let out a slow breath. Yeah, I said. Then, quieter. I think I just lost my family. He didn't say no, you didn't. Didn't try to fix it. He just reached over and took my hand. I'm here, he said. And somehow, that meant more than anything they'd said inside that house. But even then, even with that moment, I didn't realize something yet. Walking away was one thing. Living with the consequences? That was going to be a whole different story. The first week without my parents felt strange. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Just quiet. Too quiet. I didn't realize how much background noise they were in my life until it was gone. The random texts. My mom asking if I'd eaten. My dad sending those dry, one-word check-ins that didn't mean much, but still meant something. Now, nothing. And at first, I told myself it was fine. I had Mitchell. I had a place to stay. I had my job. That should have been enough. But reality doesn't hit all at once. It creeps in. Like when I went to grab something from my bag and realized half my stuff was still missing. Or when I instinctively reached for my phone to text my mom about something stupid, and stopped. Or when I woke up in the middle of the night and just felt it. That shift. That distance. You're doing it again, Mitchell said one night. We were sitting on the floor of his living room, takeout containers between us, TV playing something neither of us was actually watching. Doing what? I asked. Checking out, he said. I frowned. I'm right here. Physically, he replied. That was annoyingly accurate. I exhaled, leaning back against the couch. I'm just thinking about them. Not a question. Yeah. He nodded slowly, like he expected that. Do you regret it? He asked. That question hit harder than I expected. I sat there for a second, really thinking about it. About everything. The fight. The way my dad looked at me. The way my mom's voice changed. The door closing behind us. And then, I looked at Mitchell. At the way he was sitting there, relaxed but attentive. Not trying to control the moment. Not trying to tell me what to feel. Just there. No, I said. And I meant it. I hate how it happened, I added. But I don't regret choosing you. Something shifted in his expression. Subtle. But real. You didn't choose me, he said. You chose yourself. I shook my head slightly. You're part of that. Yeah, he said softly. But don't make me the reason you walked away. That's not fair to you. I didn't have a response for that. Because he wasn't wrong. A few days later, something unexpected happened. I got a text. From my mom. Not a call. Not a long message. Just, are you okay? I stared at it for a while. Longer than I probably should have. Mitchell noticed immediately. Who is it? I turned the phone slightly. My mom. He didn't react dramatically. Just nodded once. That's something. Yeah. I read the message again. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't acceptance. But it also wasn't silence. And right now, that mattered. What are you gonna say? He asked. I thought about it. About everything I wanted to say. Everything I could say. And everything that probably wouldn't help. Then I typed. Yeah. I'm okay. I hesitated. Then added. I miss you. I didn't know if that was the right move. But it was honest. And that felt like the only way forward now. She didn't reply right away. Of course she didn't. But later that night, another message came in. We need time too. I let out a small breath reading it. Not perfect. Not fixed. But real. Mitchell sat down next to me on the couch. Progress? Something like that, I said. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. You know what's weird? I added. What? I thought choosing you would feel like losing everything else. He turned his head slightly. And? It doesn't, I said. It felt like I was finally standing on my own. Scary. unstable. But mine. He was quiet for a second. Then, "You know I'm not going anywhere, right?" I looked at him. There was no hesitation in his face. No doubt. Just that same quiet certainty he'd had from the beginning. "I know," I said. And this time, it didn't scare me. We didn't say anything else after that. Didn't need to. I shifted closer, our shoulders touching, his hand finding mine like it had a dozen times before, but now it felt different. Not secret. Not hidden. Just real. And yeah, my parents still didn't like him. Maybe they wouldn't for a long time. Maybe ever. But for the first time in my life, that wasn't the thing deciding who I got to love. And if I'm being honest, I didn't just fall in love with Mitchell. I finally stopped being afraid to choose it. Even when it cost me something. Because in the end, it didn't feel like I lost my family. It felt like I stopped losing myself.